Hi guys, it was really good to see some of you in the live session for adding, subtracting and multiplying polynomials. Now this is a video lesson on dividing polynomials. You've already seen one video lesson where you learned how to use a long division method for dividing a polynomial by a monomial, and also on how do you do the conventional dividing a number by a number using the long division method. So once again, just going over certain terms because I'm going to be using this vocabulary repeatedly when we go over the questions, when we divide a polynomial by any other polynomial. So let's go over it carefully. Here in this question, 11 is being divided by 4. So 11, which is being divided, it's called the dividend. And what is dividing 11? It's called the divisor. As you can see, the vocabulary is given here also, dividend and the divisor. Now you have to look for a number that is a multiple of 4 less than 11, which is 8. So 4 goes into 8 two times. And then you subtract your 8 from 11 and the remaining number is 3. We cannot go further because 3 is less than 4. So we stop here. When we stop, whatever number remains is called the remainder, and what you get here on top, it's called the quotient. So we have the quotient, which is 2, the remainder, which is 3, dividend is 11, and divisor is 4. How do you write the answer? So 11 divided by 4, you write the answer as quotient, which is in our case is 2, and then the remainder is 3 divided by the divisor, which is 4 in this case. Okay, so moving on, some more vocabulary words that you will be requiring is what is the degree of a polynomial, or the highest degree or the degree. So look at this polynomial. These are mostly binomials except 82 is like a monomial. There's no other term. So let's look at the degree. Degree is the highest power present in the polynomial. So in this case you have this term has a power 4. This one is 1. If there is no power, the power is 1. So you have the higher of the two is 4, so the degree of this polynomial is 4. Similarly here, the degree, the power of this term is 3, and this x has a power 1. Out of the two, 3 is bigger, so 3 is the degree of this polynomial. Similarly, you have here the power is 1, and if there is no power, no variable given here, like 2, the power is 0. So between 1 and 0, the higher one is 1, so the degree here is 1. 82. 82, there is no x present. You can write it as x to the power 0. So this is like a term with a degree 0. So remember, if there is only a number present, the degree is 0. Okay, so the degree is equal to, the degree is equal to 0. Okay, so this is about highest degree. We will go over these, once we are going over the examples, and we have gone over what is a dividend, what is a quotient, what is a divisor, and what is a remainder. So let's take up the first example now. Okay, so I'm dividing here um, a polynomial which is a trinomial, 1, 2, 3 terms, and I'm dividing it by a binomial which is x plus 1. The one above is called the, as we discussed before, is called the dividend that goes under the roof here, and then the one below is called the divisor that comes over here. Now, what are we going to do? We are going to look at the term with the highest degree. There is an x, there's no x present here. This has a higher power, which is 1, and then of the divisor, and then we are going to see the highest degree of the highest power term of the dividend, which is 2 here. So we are going to use just these two, highest and highest, in order to start dividing. So what are we going to do? We're going to make this x equal to 3x squared by multiplying something with it. What do we multiply with x to get a 3 in front? We multiply it by 3. So we multiply it by 3. Then we want to make this x square. There is one x already present. We multiply it by another x to get an x square. So when you multiply 3, you get a 3 here, and x when multiplied with x makes an x square. So, but you see it's a binomial, so there are two terms present here. You cannot just simply multiply this 3x with only x. You have to take care of the other term of this binomial. So you multiply 3x with x. You will get a 3x square. You write it down here. Then you multiply 3x with 1. You will get a 3x. You write it down under the x term of the dividend. Which is the x term? 5x. You write it down under the x term, you write it down under the x term of the dividend. Okay, now the next step is, like we do in long division, we subtract. Subtracting means adding the opposite. So you put the opposite sign here. This was positive, you make it negative. This was positive, you make it negative. So 3x square minus 3x square becomes a 0, and 5x, and now it's not a plus 3x, it is a minus 3x. 5x minus 3x becomes a 2x, and then you copy down the 2. Okay, now again we start the same procedure. So we have the highest term with the highest power here as x with the power is 1, and here between the two of them the term with the highest power is 2x, the power is 1. Now we're going to make this x 2x. What do you multiply with x to make it a 2x? You multiply it with 2. But once again, you cannot just multiply 2 with x to make a 2x. You have to multiply 2 with 1 also, and put that number under the number term here. So before that, you remember we had copied down this 2, and then this 2 with x becomes a 2x, and this 2 with 1 becomes a 2. Again we are going to do the subtraction. So this is a positive 2x, it becomes a negative 2x, and this is a positive 2. This is a positive 2, and it becomes a negative 2. So 2x now minus 2x becomes a 0, and 2 now minus 2 becomes a 0. So our remainder is 0. And if the remainder is 0, then the answer is only the quotient, and that your quotient in this question is 3x plus 2, and that is your answer. And this is possible if your remainder is 0, but because then you don't have to write quotient plus remainder over divisor, because 0 over anything is 0. So that is your answer. Okay, let's move on to the next example now. In this example, we are dividing 2x squared plus 4x plus 2 by x minus 1. Again, a trinomial, you're dividing it by a binomial. Okay, so you put the dividend under the roof, 2x squared plus 4x plus 2. Make sure every term is present. The x squared term is present, then one less than that x term is present, and then the one with the 0 power, the number term is present. You divide it by x minus 1. Again, you're going to make your look for the one with the highest power, x, and in the dividend it is 2x squared. You're going to make x 2x squared. So what do? You multiply x with 2, x with 2, and then you're going to make it x squared. So there is one x present, you have to multiply it with one more x to make x squared. So you have a 2x here. But once again, you cannot multiply 2x only with x because it is a binomial, so two terms are present. You're going to multiply it with negative 1 also. So let's see what happens. 2x times x becomes a 2x square, and 2x times negative 1 becomes a negative 2x. You're going to put your x square term under the x square term, and the x term under the x term. Okay, so the x term goes under the x term. Once again, you're going to subtract. So 2x square and change the sign. It is positive, it becomes a negative. This was a negative because you multiplied 2x with negative 1. So this was a negative 2x. Now it becomes a positive, right? So 2x square minus 2x square becomes a 0. 4x now plus 2x becomes a 6x. And you take the 2 down. Okay, now you have 6x here, which is the one with the higher power, and you're going to make your x now equal to 6x. So what are you going to do to x? What are you going to multiply to x to make it a 6x? You're going to multiply x with 6 because you don't have to worry about this and the other term right now. Only worry about making this x equal to the highest power of the x present here, whatever the coefficient is. So multiply it with 6. But again, once again, when you multiply x with 6, it becomes a 6x. But again, there are two terms present. So x with 6 becomes a 6x, and 6 with negative 1 becomes a negative 6. So you have 6x and negative 6 subtracted. Positive 6x becomes a negative. Negative 6 becomes a positive. So 6x minus 6x is a 0, negative 2, and now plus 6 is 8. Now look at this. 8 has a degree 0, like we discussed. A number has a degree 0. This has a degree 1. Once the degree of the remainder is less than the degree of the divisor, you stop dividing. Okay, and then your answer becomes the quotient. The answer becomes the quotient which you write here, and then your remainder which you write here, divided by the divisor which you write here. So that is how you write your answer. Okay, moving on to the next example. Again, you do the same thing, but one thing which is different here is your x cube term is there, x square term is there in the dividend, x term is missing. So you will write it down here as a 0x term, because when you write the dividend under the roof, make sure in the decreasing order all the terms are present. If any term is missing, then you write it. If the number is missing, you don't have to write that down. But any term in between the number and the highest power is missing, you write it as 0, so you can do your question carefully. Now you can just watch how this question is. I'll quickly go over it. 2x square, and you want to make 4x cube by multiplying it with someone. So you will multiply it with 2x, but 2x has to be multiplied with both 2x square and also with negative 1, like we were discussing. So when you do that, you'll get a 4x cube, and 2x multiplied by negative 1 becomes a negative 2x, which you're not going to put under the 2x square term. You're going to put it under the x term. So again, positive becomes negative, negative becomes positive. Add them up, you'll get a 0 here, and you'll get a 0 plus 2x now as a 2x, and this negative 2x square gets copied down. Similarly, you copy down the 3 and you copy down the negative 2x square, because there's nothing to add and subtract to it. Now the higher of the two is 2x square. You're going to negative 2x square, sorry, negative 2x square. So you're going to make 2x square negative 2x square. How do you do that? You multiply that by a negative 1. So, and this negative 1 has to be multiplied once again with both 2x square, and it has to be multiplied by negative 1. Once you do that, you will get a negative 2x square here, and negative 1 times negative 1 becomes a positive 1. Again, change the signs and you will get your. Why is this a remainder? Because the degree of this remainder is 1, which is less than the degree of the divisor, which is 2. So once you have a remainder of something remaining here which has a degree less than that of the divisor, you stop dividing. Okay, and then you write down your answer. Okay guys, now it is your turn to divide. This is the question, and divide carefully and see if you get this answer.